And it's just all these years has been me like trying my best to do something that felt right.
Today, I will be continuing my discussion on the many sources that can cause mental health issues in teenagers. This is the second part of this discussion, but you don't need to watch part 1 to watch this one. I'll leave a link to the first part and the rest of my mental health series in the description if that interests you. Over the course of this video, I won't exactly be talking about mental health issues themselves. Rather, I will be bringing up how I think they develop within teens and what specific areas of their lives are to blame. As always, if you have any thoughts on my points in this video, drop them in the comments below. I want to hear what you have to say. With that said, let's begin. If I asked a teenager, "Who are you?" what do you think would be their response? Something along the lines of, "My name is A, I go to B school, and I do X, Y, and Z in my spare time." Most people would answer it like that, because up until this point, they have always defined themselves by what they do, not who they actually are. The reason I say that is because most of these things are only temporary in high school. Your school, friends, the sports you play, it goes away after 4 years. What are you left with after? It's definitely not an easy question. I wouldn't have been able to answer it correctly. I probably still can't give a complete response. The true answer to this question is supposed to reveal your identity to another person. What behaviors and qualities make up you? A serious problem can arise if this chain of thoughts pops into the head of a teen. Do I have a real identity? Are all the other kids ahead of me? How do I figure out who I really am? Your mind will play tricks on you, pushing you further down a pit of distress and angst. Most people will go through an identity crisis in their lives, but what happens when you go through this turmoil without actually forming an identity yet? I feel like I have never really learned how I was supposed to discover my identity, and that's the main problem. I don't think there's enough discussion about finding yourself. Now, this doesn't have to happen by the time you turn 18, but at least we can talk about getting on the journey. 2 pieces of advice I have are pretty straightforward, but still might help you if you are struggling with this. First, try not to attach your entire being to the titles of the activities that you do. Here's an example to provide an alternate way of thinking. Instead of saying to yourself, "I play 3 sports," think of it like this: I am a very team-oriented person. I am someone who enjoys collaborating, communicating, and working towards a common goal. See, that is a quality that you can take with yourself for life. The second piece of advice builds on the previous point. Simply get a sheet of paper and write out all of the qualities, good and bad, that you think you possess. Next, say them out loud a few times and see how it makes you feel. It might help, it might not, doesn't hurt to try. The whole point of the section is this: discovering and understanding yourself is crucial in life, and simply becoming comfortable with thinking about this is the first step towards answering the question, who are you? But always remember that you are never behind the curve, because this journey is a solo endeavor. It is only on your terms and pace. It's time to talk about relationships, more specifically, romantic relationships. The 2 main themes that I will focus on are fantasy and happiness. First, let's start with the fantasy that everyone learns at some point in their lives. 2 people meet in high school and live happily ever after for the rest of their lives. In my opinion, because everyone knows this story, it is a lose-lose situation whether you end up in a relationship in high school or not. If you do, you're bound to believe that it will last forever, even if it won't. Then, if it ends, it will feel all the more worse to accept that you must move on. On the other hand, if you don't find a relationship, you might believe that there is something wrong with you, or that you messed up in some way. That thought definitely came into my head. The second main idea is happiness, and along with that is dependency. Even though I have no personal experience with this, I firmly believe that most people who get into relationships at a young age become too dependent on their partner for happiness. Why does this happen? I think there's a common chain of events that occurs. Person A does not know how to be happy on their own, and they come to the conclusion that they cannot actually be happy alone. So they look for a partner and end up with person B. The relationship lasts for a year, and over that time, person B becomes the primary source of happiness for person A. Then they break up. Now, person A feels incomplete, lonely, and worst of all, unhappy. The one piece of advice that I have covers both main ideas of fantasy and happiness. And it's not just don't get into a relationship, because that's the cop-out answer. Before you start a relationship, you must have the ability to be happy on your own, for your sake and your partner's. You have to let go of the high school sweetheart fantasy and be able to confidently say, I do not need anyone to be happy in life. If it comes down to it, I can make it in life on my own without this person. If you can do that, then I think you are mature enough to take a stab at dating. Both of the previous parts that I have talked about connect to this final part. It is a basic human need to want to belong or be part of a group or a community. Whether it's a family, friend group, or relationship, we all want to be a piece of something that gives us a little more meaning. But that can be very hard to come by as a teenager. Why are there so many people who tend to stick to themselves and spend most of the day alone? Now, there is a difference between being an independent person and the feeling of not belonging. It is this feeling, though, which creates a hole that causes so much harm on a person's ability to search for a community. It's another case of your mind playing tricks on you. Everyone around me is in a group. Everyone belongs, except me. Has that thought ever come into your head? Loneliness, resentment, and hopelessness are just a few consequences of this going on for too long. So how can you avoid falling into this place? Honestly, my best piece of advice here is a hybrid of what I have been saying this entire video. First, you have to get to know you. How can someone learn who you are if you don't know yourself? Get on that first. Next, you need to take yourself out of your life and think about everyone else and their thoughts. I wonder if anyone else struggles with not belonging. You might realize that you're not alone in this and that most people feel the same thing. Now, fix that for them. Go up to people and make them feel like they belong in any way you can. Two things will result from this. Either they will appreciate it and move on with their day, or they'll appreciate it and reciprocate that energy right back to you. Now you feel like you belong too.
And I've always seen the light. Through whatever darkness I was in, it was nothing that I couldn't get out of.
I hope you could relate to some of the things I talked about today. As I said previously, I know that this video wasn't mental health focused. The reason I went with this path in the video is because I believe that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to figure out how you got there in the first place. So, I hope this style helped you in some way. I try to offer a little challenge in each one of my videos, and I have a new one for you. In the next week, try to spend at least 15 minutes outside each day. You don't have to exercise, but at least attempt to sit outside and take in the environment. No phones or any other technology. As for the next chapter in this mental health series, I will be discussing social anxiety. If that interests you, let me know by leaving a like or leaving some words in the comment section. You can also subscribe if you want to stay up to date with the videos I put out. As always, this has been Dark Horse, and I will see you in the next video.